for the final stretch. We're going to be talking about submitting theses, dissertations, articles, kind of the things that you need to know when you get ready to finish. But I think it's really, really helpful for folks to get to know what it is that you need to do at the end as you're working through, of course, middle stages, but really at the beginning so that you can think forward and understand what it is that you're going to have to do when you submit. I'm Christina Quinn, and I'm the director of CSU Rates, and it's my pleasure to be here with Helen Baer and Kalita Thomas from the libraries, and we also have folks from the graduate school as well. So I'm going to have folks introduce themselves. So how about Helen and Kalita, and then Hillary, and then let's see, should we do Amber as well?
Yes, we should. And I'll go ahead and start. Hi, I'm Helen Baer. I'm a digital archivist at the CSU Libraries.
And I'll go next. I'm Kalita Thomas, and I'm the Copyright and Scholarly Communications Librarian at CSU Libraries.
I'll go ahead. I'm Amber D'Ambrosio. I'm the Digital Projects Librarian at CSU Libraries.
I'll go. I'm Hillary Klebish. I'm basically the ETD coordinator at the graduate school. So yeah, I'm the one that gets them all and then hopefully catches a lot of things. Yes. I won't say everything because we know I don't do that.
But yeah, it's great. So Hillary is a person that when you're submitting, you will get to know her very well if you have to go back and forth. So I'm glad you're all here. Thank you so much. We're going to get moving and get started with the information and presentation. But if you have questions, feel free to use the chat. And I know that Helen and Kalita are super fast, so if they catch things, or Hillary, if you see things coming through for the graduate school, questions about the graduate school, please just grab those. And just want to confirm that everyone can see my slides as I move forward. All right, so just from CSU Rates kind of background, there's some upcoming events that I want to highlight. First is the data cohort. It started yesterday, but if you are actively writing your thesis or dissertation this semester, or it could be anything for submission, this would be a great group for you to jump into. They meet on Mondays. There's a little bit of goal setting on a Monday, and then you have a short writing session for about an hour and a half after that. Kimmy Conroe from CSU Rates is running that session. And then I want to highlight Right to Publish. That is a 12-week-ish session. We actually take content now and we combine it into 6 weeks of content, but then there are also 6 weeks of working sessions in there, and that's for building out a manuscript for publication. You do not have to be actively writing an article. If you're just interested in the information, you're more than welcome to attend, but it is helpful if you're thinking about taking something that you've already done as a conference presentation, or you have a class presentation or something like that, that you want to build out into an article. It's a great way to do that. And then the last thing I want to highlight from CSU Rates is the book club, just because it takes a little bit of time sometimes to read a book. And so this one's on the AI con. It's about the hype and AI, just the world of AI that we live in. It's written by a sociologist and a linguist, if I remember correctly. So it's a worthwhile read, and we'll have those on March 3rd and March 4th. There's an in-person session and then a virtual session. So no matter what your flavor is for attendance, if you want to be in person or if you want to do virtual, there's a session for you. And then Kalita, I know that this is a handout that we've given in the past, and is this something that you could pop into the chat? I said we'll link it in the chat, but I think that was optimistic on my end. So I'm hoping you got it. So, all right, I think that's all of our bookkeeping and just in general information. What we're going to be talking about today is submission quality types and advice from articles, right, to theses and dissertations. We'll talk about ProQuest and copyright information, some information on Mountain Scholar, which is why we have our digital librarians right here. And then we'll have some little bit of time for chat and questions. We're going to move through information quickly, so if you need us to state something over or cover something again, please, again, use the chat. But it'd be really great if you could introduce yourself in the chat. That way we get a sense of who's here and what different departments and programs you might be in. There might be some specialized responses based on where it is that you're coming from that would be helpful. All right, so we've already done our session speakers, so I'm going to move forward. And I'm going to talk a little bit about before you submit and some just quick advice for thesis, dissertation, and other kind of professional documents, and you're thinking about professional kind of quality and when you go to submit. I'm going to state the obvious first, which is that it's really helpful if you identify at the outset of writing kind of what the expectations are for formatting, and whether that's you're submitting to the graduate school or you're submitting, to a journal or even to a funding agency. Those formatting requirements, you're going to have to just demonstrate that you know them. It's in part because if you're actually, if you're asking for funding, the funding agency wants to know that you're going to be a good steward of their money. And one of the ways that you do that is you prove that you can follow directions. One of the ways that you get out of graduate school is you prove that, well, you can follow the directions and format your thesis or dissertation in a way that is consistent with CSU standards and needs. And, just check those web pages early and repeatedly, and I'll give you some of the information from CSU. And you just want to kind of go back again periodically and just make sure that you are identifying any kind of changes in guidance, that you have those kind of in line and you know what you're talking about. All right, and so that's just going to be like very helpful information. The ETD guide is on the CSU Graduate School web pages. They have great information on organizing and formatting your thesis and dissertation. Hillary she's also here, right? So there are people behind the scenes. So it's not just a bot that you're submitting to. So they've got great information on how you would organize, and you can go through and kind of click links, and you can get some wonderful pages where they actually detail out to where your margins need to be, right? And where you need to place select information. So please pay attention to those details. For LaTeX users, just note that the graduate school does not support LaTeX. They do have some information on a thesis and dissertation template, but they are not going to be working in LaTeX when you submit, so just keep that in mind. They also have information through the graduate school on electronic thesis or dissertation submission process and the copyright registration, although it gets a little bit complicated, which is why we have folks from the library here to give additional information and guidance there. Those deadline dates, please pay attention to them. If you are planning on finishing up in the spring semester, please make sure that you pay attention to those deadline dates as they're listed on the website. It's possible that, if you look at those dates and it looks like it's a little bit too close, a little bit too tight for you to have a conversation with your committee and see if it might be best for you to finish up in the summer. It's possible that you could still walk, I think, in the spring, but you want to make sure that you've got those dates and you're able to meet those deadlines, those times for submission. Again, I think the graduate school's website, on their submission pages, they've got some really good, just kind of useful information. In fact, when we first started talking about doing a session like this years ago, I think the graduate school's point was, well, we've got great information on the website. Why would we need to do an information session? Because you're just going to show them what's on the website. And on the one hand, yes, but on the other hand, like, you've got Hillary here and you've got others here to be able to ask really great questions from. All right, same thing, by the way, and I'm going to just state the obvious about journals, but it's going to make a huge difference, particularly on certain things like AI use and decisions you make about your formatting and what submissible quality work looks like for those journals. I have been an editor at journals, and I have seen so much work come in that is either ill-suited for that journal or it's just ill-formatted. And so make sure that, again, you do your due diligence and pay attention to whatever their formatting guides are and information are for authors. They've got great information, at the journals behind the scenes, and it'll save you a lot of time and heartache if you start at the very beginning, knowing what journal you're going to be submitting to as you're kind of shaping and fine-tuning the formatting of your article, versus then getting to the journal and realizing that perhaps you've formatted, as I have done this, by the way, formatted an MLA format and realized that I would need to reformat to Chicago manual style. So just make sure that you've got some of that information at your fingertips. So it just helps for you to do your homework and take your time as you're formatting. Formatting is often something that I know that I tend to want to put off to the very end, and I'm always grateful for the reasons that I just mentioned, if making sure that you're in the right formatting style guide from the very beginning. Just a reminder that AI cannot be listed as a co-author. It should be built in. If you're using AI in any of your writing, it should be built in ways that allows for you to disclose openly how it is that you've used AI. Nearly all journals and all the ones that I've been looking at recently have AI guidance for their authors. If they are saying that you are not allowed to use AI in various ways in your work and you have done so, notice that you've already gone awry of what it is that your either funding agency or your publisher is allowing for you to do. And so therefore you can no longer submit that proposal or submit that work, or it's going to take some significant reworking in order to make it comply with their AI guidelines and standards. So just make sure that you know right off the bat what those expectations are at the out, when you go to submit. The ethical key, this is the gold standard, and we rely on individuals right now to track their AI use so that you can then disclose at the end when you submit how it is that you've used AI. Most publishers and most funding agencies are okay with you using artificial intelligence in the kind of cleanup of your ideas for some sort of editing. Some may actually say no. I haven't quite seen that yet, but I'm assuming that there are some journals out there where they're much more stringent than others. There's not one set standard, and so you do need to check, and that's why I'm reminding you, check at the journal author information pages, and also with your committee if you're writing here. There are programs that are allowed at CSU, and you are allowed to use AI in your theses and dissertations, so long as it is approved by your committee and by your program. So it is by program on how that's approved currently at CSU. If you don't know if AI use is allowed in your writing for your program, just make sure that you check with your committee and get clear on what those standards and guidelines are. Submissible quality, just want to explore what those elements are and just kind of know that it's defined by the norms of your institution and your field of study. So it's not just one mode of submissible quality. There may be multiple modes of submissible quality. And when you meet those, it's how you get things submitted. So it may feel a lot like you're checking boxes or having to comply with technicalities, but again, it does show how it is that you're going to be either a good steward of money or how it is that you're a professional and really they can trust what it is that you're submitting because it's good quality and it already meets the standards of submissible work according to the journal or according to the graduate school's formatting guidelines. All right. So next, we have information about copyright considerations and your ETD.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. And let's see if I can take control of the slide deck. Ooh, it looks like it let me do that. Okay, everyone. Hi, I'm going to talk to you briefly about some copyright considerations when you're working on your ETD. I always like to start off with first, like, what is copyright? Make sure we're all on the same page. So copyright is a form of protection that provides creators of original works exclusive set of rights for a set amount of time. You need two things for your work to be considered copyrighted. It has to be original, so something that is minimally creative, and it needs to be fixed in a tangible form of expression, which is just a legal and fancy way of saying that it has to be written down or recorded in some way. And once you have those two things, then your work is considered copyrighted. So this is an automatic right, meaning that you do not have to register your work with the U.S. Copyright Office before your work is considered copyrighted. However, registering your work will bestow some benefits upon you. It is a record that you are the copyright holder of the work, and it is a requirement if you were ever considering taking someone to court for copyright infringement. And when I say court, I'm referring to the federal court system there. But it isn't something that you have to do, but I have had a few students who were interested in registering their thesis or dissertation, and I have talked to them about that process. So I mentioned in the slide before about your rights. I keep saying your rights, but these are the rights that I'm referring to. This is the right to reproduce your work, so to make a copy of your work, to distribute it, to publicly perform it, to publicly display it, and to prepare derivatives. So those are remixing your work. Think of film, book to film. Those are considered derivative works. And so these are your exclusive rights that you try to prevent folks from infringing upon, and that folks need to ask you for permission. And so one thing that is required in your ETD is this copyright page. It's a little blurry, so apologies, but I think it's on that web page that has all the sample pages. And this isn't required by copyright law. You technically don't have to have a copyright notice on your work anymore, but it's something that CSU likes students to put on there because it is letting everyone know that the student owns the copyright in this work. And so to not assume that the university owns the work, and so that they would have to, refer to that student in order to reuse the work or to get permission to reuse figures from that work. So now I'm just going to go through a few copyright FAQs. So these are typical questions that I get asked about copyright as it relates to ETDs. The first is about using others' copyrighted work, so work that you did not create. So I often get asked like, well, if I just cite the copyrighted material in my ETD, like, isn't that enough? Or do I need to request permission? And so the answer to that is it depends. So you have to consider a couple different things. First, you have to decide whether the thing you want to use, like the figure or the image, is it even protected by copyright, or is it something that is in the public domain, and that is where works go when they fall out of copyright protection. If it does seem to be not in the public domain, then the next question is there an open license that already permits you to reuse the work? And that's when I'm referring to those Creative Commons licenses that folks put on their works that allow open reuse of the work under those terms of license. In those situations, you don't have to request permission. The license tells you what you're allowed to do with it. Or the next question is, is your work covered by an exception such as fair use? And so what is fair use? Fair use is an exception in copyright law and allows limited use of copyrighted material for purposes like criticism, commentary, and teaching without permission. However, in order to claim fair use, you have to run it through the test of the 4 factors of fair use. I won't go through all the 4 factors here because that would take quite a bit of time, but essentially there are 4 factors that you have to weigh when you decide that you're going to use something without requesting permission for it. So fair use is a defense. So you can claim fair use, but you could still be sued for copyright infringement, and it's up to a federal court to decide whether or not your use actually constituted fair use. But it is a very strong thing that folks use all the time. So Christina mentioned AI. Well, all of those AI companies are claiming fair use of using copyrighted works for their tools, and those are running through the court system. So fair use is a powerful defense that folks can use, and especially courts are fairly lenient when it comes to non-commercial use and use for like educational purposes. However, if you decide, well, I don't know if this meets fair use, or I don't want to, I still would rather just request permission, I will say that most journal articles, if you want to reuse a figure or an image, they've made it fairly simple to just go onto their website and to just request that, do that permission request. This is a screenshot of what that kind of typically looks like, depending on the different journal. They use CCC rights links to facilitate that process, and often they do not charge if it's like one figure. So usually if students are coming to me and they're asking about reusing an image or a figure, I will say, let's just see if you can request it really easily from the journal, and if it's a straightforward, simple process, then that's probably your easiest way to move forward with getting permission to reuse that work. Sometimes there's not a request form, and so people have created sample permission request forms that you can use, or you can create your own if one doesn't exist. The other thing that a question that I get asked often is about reusing your own published work. So folks wonder if they can reuse something that they already published. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky because it really does depend on your license agreement that you signed with the publisher. So one thing that publishers typically do for the traditional publishing model is they require you to transfer your copyright to the publisher. So you transfer over all those exclusive rights and you are no longer considered the copyright holder of the work the publisher is. And so you have to look closely at your agreement to see what it allows you to do with your work. Oftentimes, a lot of publishers do allow students to reuse their thesis, their work, their previously published work in their thesis or dissertation. However, sometimes it's not clear, or they only let you use a certain portion of your work in your thesis or dissertation. So that is something to keep in mind. And one pro tip is that when you do ask for permission, also ensure that they're allowing that commercial reuse, since ProQuest is a commercial entity, and so you do have to put your thesis or dissertation into ProQuest. So you want to make sure you have that permission to do that as well. And then if you're working on a forthcoming publication, so you know after you've complete your thesis or dissertation that you're going to try to publish it, you just keep that in mind that you're going to want that agreement to have that language that says that you're allowed, you know, to reuse it, to, you know, use that work, and that's not a problem. And here are some like tips on negotiating with your publisher to secure those necessary rights so that you can reuse your published material in your ETD. So, you know, of course, be courteous. Don't be afraid to go back and forth with the editor several times. You can even strike through or mark out the language in the agreement, or you can offer alternative terms. And there are these addenda out there to help you, such as the Spark addendum, which is an addendum you can attach to your agreement that allows you to reuse your work in certain ways. So don't, you know, when you're negotiating and you're at the final step, you want to make sure that you secure those necessary rights to be able to publish your work and still use it in your thesis and or dissertation. And then the final thing that I'll mention, I think this is the final thing, yeah, is that at CSU Libraries, we do offer open access publishing support for researchers. We have several publishing agreements, and I know someone asked this in the chat earlier. So oftentimes when you publish in fully open access journals or even in hybrid journals where you could publish both the traditional route or the open access route, there's a fee associated with publishing open access. It's usually referred to as an article processing charge. And so we have agreements with some of these publishers where we will cover the full APCs for you. So do take a look. And if you are interested in finding a specific journal under our agreements in your particular area, please let me know. I help folks find that information all the time. And then when you publish open access, you don't have to worry about a lot of this copyright stuff that I talked about, because you retain the copyright in your work. So when you publish open access, so that's the one huge benefit. And here are a few resources, a link to my copyright guide and my open access guide that has some of this information, as well as my contact information. And I believe that's it for me, and I'll pass it off to Helen.
Here we are. So let's fast forward in time. You have finished your work. You have written a master's thesis or a dissertation, and you're feeling really happy because your committee has approved it and your family is about to get you back. Hooray. So now we're going to talk about what happens at the tail end of this whole process. Can you do the slide, please? Okay, so when you submit your work, it's going to end up in Mountain Scholar. Mountain Scholar is CSU's institutional repository. And that means that we collect all the wonderful academic outputs from our community, also creative outputs, to sort of showcase like what we're about here at CSU and to share with the world what our research has produced. We have been collecting theses and dissertations for a while now in Mountain Scholar, and we started to go back in time and add more of them. So now you can look at all of our theses and dissertations since 2002. Mountain Scholar is an open access repository. So that means that everything is available to folks right away, with very few exceptions, and we'll talk about a couple of things. basically, if you're writing something where you want it to be locked down for a long time, Mountain Scholar is not the best place for it, but there are exceptions, like I said. One of those exceptions is an embargo. So sometimes you are working on something and perhaps you have a journal article out at the same time, and it's really important that you not immediately publish the entire thesis or dissertation because of that article being pending, right? So you are allowed, with the permission of the graduate school, to embargo your work. So when it comes to requesting embargoes, you will want to get in touch with the grad school, and they have a grad ETD email address, I believe. And the library here, folks in the library cannot approve an embargo. It has to go through the grad school. So we will actually make the embargo happen in the repository. And that's simply a matter of setting a date, and then the system actually lifts off the embargo. So just keep that in mind. If you write to us, and people frequently do, wanting an embargo, I will send you immediately to Hillary. There's also a takedown policy. It's a very rare thing where we have to take anything out of our repository, but it does happen from time to time. Just wanted you to be aware that there is such a policy. What happens with a takedown is that we will leave the metadata describing the work, but takes access to the work itself away. So, like I said, there's very few examples. Reasons for doing this would be personal security, personal safety, national security, if a work would happen to reveal something that the feds didn't want you to reveal, that sort of thing. Next slide, please. So there is a place to go to submit your ETD. And we are happy here at Morgan Library to help you if you have any technical issues with the system. It does happen from time to time. And sometimes we cannot help, and we have to send you over to ProQuest support. Just wanted to let you know about that. When you are receiving communications from the university, which would be from Hillary in this case, about your ETD, about the content, that is going to come from a ProQuest email account. So just be aware of that so that you're not missing something really important, like a request from Hillary to make a small change. Next slide. So an overview of the submission process is here. You simply go to the website, submit. The graduate school, again, Hillary is going to take a look at your work and make sure that it looks close enough to those formatting guidelines that we talked about earlier. ProQuest, in its own good time, will send us the content via a very automatic process. They hold on to your thesis or dissertation for maybe 2 months before they send it on to Mountain Scholar. I have a theory about why that is. You can ask me about it later. Library staff will do a little bit of metadata cleanup just to meet the standards for the repository. And that's simply things like if you capitalized every word of your title, we're going to make that title case, things like that. This is also the time when we apply those embargoes if you've received permission from the graduate school to have one. Next slide. And again, just to touch base on copyright one more time, when you deposit into Mountain Scholar via ProQuest, you are actually signing a deposit agreement, but it does not take any of your copyright away. You still own it. It basically allows the university to place a single copy of your work in the repository, and you keep all your rights. So do not worry about that. We talked earlier, or Kalita talked earlier, about how to register your copyright. And again, that is your ticket into federal court if you should need to bring someone to court about infringing upon your rights. If you want to register your copyright while you're in the ProQuest system, you can do that, and they will charge you $75. And there's no need to do that unless you think, again, you might possibly have a court case down the road. One more reminder, again, to please just try to plan in advance about when you're using third-party content from somebody else who still owns a copyright. It's much easier to get an early start than to find out later that you have a permissions problem. Next slide, please. And then when you're in the ProQuest system, there are some publishing options. Again, the embargoes are approved only by the graduate school. ProQuest, which is a commercial provider, gives you an option between traditional publishing or open access publishing. They would like to charge you $95 to open up access within its ProQuest site, but it's already an open access site at Mountain Scholar, so you don't need to spend that $95. And you can register for copyright for $75. one of the advantages of using ProQuest is that your material will be discoverable via Google Scholar and what they call other major search engines. So you should be assured of people finding your work. Next slide. That is the last one for me. I do want to mention here that Amber D'Ambrosio is taking over for me in this role going forward. So Amber, you want to flip your camera on one more time? There she is. Hello. So there is a digital admin email that was in one of the links that came out earlier. And I'll put that in the link right now. This will reach Amber and others if you are seeking help from the library. And that's it for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Kalita. Thank you, Hillary and Amber. We're going to open it up for just a little bit of questions. We've got 10 minutes left. And so if there are things that you are kind of challenged by or thinking about as you are imagining your submission, either soon. I know some of you on the call are going to be finishing up this semester. Some of you, however, are thinking about planning and formatting and some of these issues in advance. So I know that you may be a year or two or more away from submitting, but what questions do you have?
So, Dr. Quinn, I have heard that this formatting stuff could vary by department. Is that true?
It depends on it, not the document itself, and Hillary can help out with this because she's probably more knowledgeable. But I know that there have been, according to the type of dissertation that you're writing and what you're including in it, you may be formatting it in ways that are common to your field or common to your study or common to the idiosyncrasies of your very own committee, and they'll want things in their kind of own style. However, everything in the dissertation is, as I'm understanding it, and Hillary can correct me, that gets submitted, the thesis or dissertation that's submitted to the graduate school has to conform with graduate school guidelines, and those are pretty flexible. And so, Hillary, you want to address?
Yeah, so, and I do kind of want to clarify when we talk about the grad school, and me in particular going through the formatting, it's really specific to the preliminary pages. So we are only looking at, we being me, the grad school, are really just looking at those preliminary pages. So at page 1, so not Roman numeral, like page 1 introduction, our formatting stops. I will do a quick look through because sometimes I have found, and this kind of is one of the questions here from Christina on what formatting issues, sometimes margins get messed up in the body of the paper. So I will go through like quick and tell you, hey, figure 2.7 or whatever has fallen outside the margins. That's just a heads up. That's not something that's just a be aware. Formatting of the preliminary pages is the same throughout. So any thesis, any dissertation I'm looking at, those preliminary pages must be formatted the way they are on the grad school website. Not all pages are required, that being said, but there's a specific format for your title page, for your copyright page, for your abstract, and your table of contents. So, but outside of that, I mean, that's truly what the grad school is looking at. It is preliminary page dependent. So anything within the body of the paper, if the department has a certain way they want to see it, grad school didn't look at it. So
you don't care about the header, running header or anything, Hillary?
Well, so they're in terms of in the body of the paper, if you want to have a running header, that's fine. On the preliminary pages, no.
Okay. And if I downloaded a fairly recent CSU dissertation as an example, I could just look at those pages to get a pretty good idea what you're requiring.
I would look at the grad school webpage, the webpage itself for the grad school that originally, I think Christina, I think
Right.
you originally had showed it. Yeah, those are the current templates. That's what we are looking at. So okay. I'm assuming, yes, the dissertation that you would pull up would probably be correct because it's already gone through the formatting. But just to be like, I would guide you towards the web page itself versus an old copy of a dissertation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So Helen, where are you heading?
Oh, I have a new job here. I'm now a digital archivist. I'm in the same department with all the same fabulous people. So, not going far.
Very good. Good luck.
Thank you.
I noticed the question, is it Katya? I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, about wondering journal style articles as their dissertation may publish these articles after graduation. Is there anything particular to be careful about? I mean, just whatever journals that's pretty common that folks will break up their dissertation and publish articles, journal articles. I've advised students regarding that. You're going to go through, the peer review process for that journal, and it's going to go through significant edits. So it's, not going to be the same as your thesis or dissertation that you submitted. And so just make sure you follow the guidance from that publisher and whether or not they consider a thesis or dissertation to be prior published work. Most publishers don't, but you definitely want to look at that journal to make sure that they're okay with you submitting something that may be out there in a thesis or dissertation format. And I don't know, Christina, if you had anything to add to that.
No, I don't. I think that's a good response. Yeah, I don't have anything to add.
Just make sure I wasn't missing anything. But yeah, those questions have come up to me for copyright, plagiarism concerns, and it's a fuzzy, the copyright part is fine. You'll just definitely look at your journal requirements, and the idea is that this is student work, right? And that by the time you would get that final published product, you've gone through significant edits and peer review, and so it would be a different thing. But those are just some things to look at. Eyeball the journal you're looking at and see what their policies are.
Yeah,
What's the
and particularly
longest
for those
embargo that you've seen approved?
2 years is all we allow. So from the grad school,
Even if it's competition sensitive?
2 years. Yep, that's all we allow from the grad school standpoint. Beyond that, I don't know how it would move forward after that, but the grad school will only allow 2 years with justification.
Okay, thanks.
Lauren.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question about the copyright. I apologize, I came in a little late just as that was being discussed, but so I have an article in my dissertation that's already published. I retain all copyright. I retain the copyright of that, but in the agreement, it does ask for an attribution, so that I need to attribute that the first publication of this article was in this journal and any future uses. So I'm just trying to understand practically what does that mean? Like, do I just need to include a citation that is says it's in this journal at some point in there? Or?
Yeah, essentially. And I've been asked this question before, and each journal has their own specific rules of how they would like you to put that information. And so I could probably dig up the example from this particular thesis or dissertation that I helped with, but it was just, they put that information, I don't know, as a footer or somewhere in where, just to indicate the journal requested, and it was fine. So I would follow whatever citation structure or format that the journal wants you to put that information and just slap it somewhere on here.
Okay, great. That's what I was hoping you would say. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions? You've got 4 people at your disposal, 5 actually. Amber. Are there any questions that you've been thinking behind the scenes about when you get ready to submit. And I suspect that many of those questions may arise the moment you go to hit the send button, but
I was just going to reply real quick to Christina Moen. She just asked what are common formatting issues that I see. I have to be honest with you, I have seen them all. So, you know, sometimes it's as simple as margins, it's capitalization. I mean, I'm nitpicky. So if you have a comma after spring 2026, if you have a comma in there, you're denied. I'm sending it back to you to delete the comma. So it's not one thing is more common than the other. I have it sometimes as simple as people just have the wrong page size. And so everything's a hot mess then, you know, and so it can be a lot of formatting issues with one very simple answer. So it's not something, but like I said, I've kind of seen everything. So I can't say, hey, be careful. Yeah, watch your margins, but the margins may actually not be the problem. It could be your page size. And so it's not always a simple answer as to what is causing, and yet it's the one thing that's wrong. So yeah, but always feel free to reach out to me. You're always more than welcome. I have no problem, especially the earlier ETDs get turned into me, the more time we have to go back and forth on stupid little things, you know, like that, you know, you guys have been looking at this paper for potentially years. Like you're just not going to see it anymore. And it's the first time I've seen it. So I have no problem going back and forth, even though you just want to get it gone. But we got to get it right. And it does become redundant sometimes. And so the sooner we can be looking at those little things, the sooner we can get it off your plate. So always just abuse me. It's fine. I'm here for you guys. So.
And Hillary, when you say get a start early, can you just say like what's the earliest that you would recommend that folks submit, and what's the latest?
Well, so deadline page, and you had spoken about that. So your GS30, I think, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think is the 12th or something. So as of that date, April 12th, I think is what it was. It might have been the week before. Regardless, keep an eye on the deadline page, which is on the grad school website. I need your GS30 and your ProQuest submission must occur by that. And then we have a week to do revisions. So I get a lot of them on that day because they just submit something, you know, and that's great. You've made that deadline, but now I only have a week. And if we're going back and forth, that's when the frustration comes in. So I always say, I mean, I was working on ETDs for spring graduation over Christmas break. So, I mean, you can get them to me if you're ready. And that's somebody, I think it was you, Christina, had made the comment that sometimes you're getting pushed for that deadline and it's just getting to the crunch. Okay, so we'll just finish it next, you know, don't panic on those deadlines. We can always do them the following term, and that gives you more time to work on it too, if that's the case. So it's you can never get it to me too soon in that sense. So long as I have your GS30, which gives me, that's the form that indicates everybody has agreed to this ETD and that this is past the committee approval. Once I have that GS30, we can spend the rest of the term up to the final turn-in date. Just going over it is fine. So, and it can go to ProQuest right away, and that's not a deadline. It can go to ProQuest, and I am the one that even if I did an initial format, you are allowed one preliminary formatting like look over. I do that one. That's through the ETD website that email that I posted. And then we can go back and forth as much as you want through ProQuest. It's fine. It's not a one and done. It is not approved until it's correct, even though it's already in ProQuest. That's where we do the back and forth. And that's where I believe it's Helen has made the point of it will be coming from a ProQuest email, but it's me. So.
And I know that we're over time, but
yeah,
I just wanted to address, no, it's not your fault. I just wanted to address the one final question about whether whether you should, if you're submitting to a journal, whether you should just wait till after your dissertation submitted. You know, getting a publication all the way through into a journal, it takes a long time. So I don't want to tell people you must wait until your dissertation is done before you publish anything from it. Really, if you know that you're going to that you're gonna have to release in your thesis or dissertation, consider publishing it open access so you don't have to worry about those copyright issues, or just be really upfront with the journal that I must for, to graduate, I have to, I'm going to be reusing a portion of this in my thesis or dissertation, so I need permission to do so. And I feel like most journals already have those policies up front, and I have helped people navigate that with different publishers. So I don't like to tell people to hold off. If you're ready to go, then, get your publications through and, just make sure you secured those rights. So, and yeah, I'll be quiet now because I know we're way over.
You're good. Thank you so much, everyone. I know that Christina Moen has a question in the chat, and Hillary, are you getting to that? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate all of you, your time, your attention, and good luck on your dissertation formatting, thesis formatting, submission, and publication. All right. Take care.
Thank you.